Well, hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Cotton Grower Magazine's Cotton Companion podcast. This is Jim Stedman, editor of Cotton Grower, and the hoping and waiting for some measurable rain in too many areas is still continuing. Trust me, we see and hear your frustration in what may turn out to be a historic year for drought, but then again, the crop in many areas seems to be doing great, and we'll talk about that in just a couple minutes. I'm flying solo again for this episode as my cotton companion, Beck Barnes, is off on some much needed time away, but we'll have him back in time for our next episode. But before we go any further, the folks at First Fire Safety, it's one of our monthly sponsors, have a message they'd like to share with you right now.
First Fire Safety is a fire protection company based out of Austin, Texas. We have developed a foam fire suppression system specifically designed to protect the John Deere round bale cotton harvester. We install this system and train operators all over the world. Be fire ready with a First Fire Safety fire suppression system. Call today for more information and pricing. 512-777-1555.
Of course, drought's not the only heartburn that's impacting this cotton production year. Back in mid-June, we all watched cotton price drop 30 or more cents in one day as inflationary concerns led speculators to exit the commodity market in general. And cotton was certainly not the only crop or industry segment impacted. Hopefully, the market is now sitting at a new base and that a climb back over $1 is still ahead. Joining me in this episode is Hank Reichle, president and CEO of Staplcotn, located in Greenwood, Mississippi. Hank and I had an opportunity to visit at a field day in Arkansas several weeks ago, just after the price drop, and he wanted to come back on the podcast to talk about it. We were finally able to get our schedules coordinated to make it work, so be sure to stay tuned to see what insights Hank has to share. But first, just a couple of items of interest for the cotton market. Now, recent crop progress reports have highlighted the overall deterioration of the U.S. cotton crop. And to a certain extent, the latest USDA crop progress report for the week ending July 24th shows the same trend, but also shows encouraging news for certain parts of the cotton belt. Overall, this week, 34% of the crop is rated good to excellent, 36% is rated fair, and 30% is rated poor to very poor. But if you take a closer look at some individual states, you'll find some good, strong ratings at that good and excellent level at or above 50% in 11 states in Alabama, Arizona, Arkansas, California, Georgia, Louisiana, Mississippi, Missouri, North and South Carolina, and Virginia. But on the flip side, Oklahoma, Tennessee, and Texas continue to show the highest negative ratings. Recent report also shows that 80% of the U.S. crop is squaring. That's up 6 percentage points in the past week, and that open bolls can now be found in 48% of the crop. That's up 17 points in the past week. But despite the issues facing this year's crop, we can now officially report that the first bale of cotton for 2022 has been delivered and ginned. Wesley Vanderpool of Alamo, Texas, harvested the year's first bale back on June 23rd, 1,989 pounds of seed cotton from a field of Stoneville ST 4990 B3XF. His cotton was then ginned at Willacy Co-op Gin in Sebastian, Texas, and the bale will be auctioned off at the annual First Bale of Cotton Auction and Scholarship Fundraiser on September 15th in Harlingen, Texas. And finally, congratulations to the Eggemeyer family in Midkiff, Texas, who submitted the winning entry in the BASF 2023 Cotton Variety Catalog Photo Contest. Rachel Eggemeyer captured the winning photo of her daughter Claire wearing her flower girl dress from a family wedding a few years ago on their Texas farm. It's a great photo. If you'd like to see it, check out the photo contest article on cottongrower.com. Well, now let's open the Cotton Companion virtual studio and welcome Hank Reichle, President and CEO of Staplcotn, back to the podcast. Hank, thanks for joining me again.
Jim, absolutely. Thank you for the invitation. Look forward to our visit today.
Great. Well, I know we visited a few weeks ago when we were both in Arkansas, And as I recall, that nice price drop for cotton and other commodities had just happened. Can you explain what happened, why it happened, and what kinds of comments and questions have you been getting from your membership?
Sure, I'll do my best. Obviously, I think it was a surprise to a lot of folks to see the market pull back to the magnitude that it did, and so quickly. Cotton was not alone, as you mentioned. We saw a broad-based sell-off in commodities and in general, and particularly the ags. Back around June the 21st, I believe, is when we really started seeing it in cotton. And I think that they're just, at about around that time, you started hearing a lot more people talking about a recession coming soon, and
Mhm.
I think there was a general consensus among the speculative community, or I won't say a general consensus, but certainly more of the spec community had decided that they no longer wanted to have the bets that they had about inflation, and maybe some wanted to even bet on deflation. You never know how these things all sort of happen at one time, but there clearly was enough people thinking the same way that put pressure on the markets when they started exiting the length that they had in the ag complex. We've had a long spec in our market for many months now, and as they started to exit that position, that put pressure on prices. Then I think, particular to cotton, we hit some very key technical points. If I recall correctly, in one day we passed the 100 and 200-day moving averages in the same day. And
Mhm.
when that happens, that brings in additional selling of the chartists or the technical folks. And then on top of that, again, specific to cotton, in particular, right now, things are pretty slow in China, in their textile industry and their economy, in the whole entire economy. So a lot of times when we see weakness in the world market, you may have China's market react differently to that and be sort of a counterbalance if they come in to buy it because the price gets cheaper relative to Chinese prices. In this particular case, things are weak enough in China that those prices had been falling as well. So there was no real good arbitrage opportunity for the Chinese to be buying our market and sell theirs. As a matter of fact, I think probably with some selling coming into our market and to their end market by the Chinese. So three factors really that this broader move probably made cotton more susceptible to the sell-off maybe than the other commodities.
Okay. Well, I've talked to several economists who basically have said this has not been a usual fundamentals issue. Demand is still holding okay, and obviously when you look at the crop situation and the weather situation, we do have sort of a weather market that would normally impact this market. Where does this look like it's going to go? How long of a climb are we going to have to get back to where people are feeling comfortable again?
Yeah, that's a good question. And look, there are two sides to the fundamental discussion, right? There's supply and there's
Yes.
demand. And over the last several months, but in particular in the last months, again, as I mentioned before, the macro outlook has certainly become more cloudy, and people are more concerned about an economic slowdown and a decrease in consumer spending that would be related to a drop in their discretionary income in particular. So it's a futures market. People are starting to look out there in the future and say, well, we have some headwinds and likely have headwinds in cotton consumption that are coming, and particularly compared to the tailwinds that we had for cotton consumption over the past a year to 18 months. But to your point, we're not seeing a real slowdown yet in anything like retail sales. We have seen inventories build back some. So the people that are betting on the demand side breaking down are doing it a little bit preemptively, I would say, and certainly doing it in anticipation of that happening. We have seen some slowdown in the textile business and in the mentality of textile mills over the last few months, but a lot of that was related to the inversion that we had in the market. As you recall, it wasn't too long ago that July futures were on the board and they were $1.30, $1.40 a pound.
Right.
So But it wasn't anything that was too great. It seems more like a normal slowdown. So I think a lot of the folks that have been selling the market have been just negative on the macro and negative on what that meant for cotton consumption. But at the same time, we saw nothing but really strengthening of the fundamentals from the supply side argument. The U.S. crop prospects continue to shrink because of primarily what's going on in Texas, but we did see a decrease in the Memphis Eastern acres just slightly when we got the June numbers. On top of that, we've got some pockets in the Memphis Eastern area where the crop is really struggling with drought. Got some great areas too, but when you just factor that all in together, the Memphis Eastern hadn't been able to increase a whole lot of production in the outlook, and in Texas has continued to decline with the drought there. So, and then too, we look around the world, and I think we're going to be still fighting the impacts of fertilizer prices and shortages. Probably will probably not help us to achieve bumper yields globally. You never know how the weather turns out, but so far, we've seen relatively benign global weather, but we didn't have a huge acreage increase anywhere in the world either. So I don't think the market has been focused on some big, huge supply that's coming. I think rather it's been not focusing on the tightness in the United States, and it's been more focused on what is perceived to be coming around the corner with a slowdown in demand.
Okay. Well, speaking of demand, I know whenever we visited at the field day or several weeks ago, you made a presentation sort of on focusing on what consumers are looking for and how the cotton market can meet those needs. Since then, I saw a report from Textile Exchange that shows that preferred cotton now represents 65% of overall cotton use by participating brands. We obviously have a number of sustainability initiatives that are active for cotton. Is this sort of the beginning of the big payoff for some of these programs?
Well, look, as I expressed at the meeting where you and I both were in Arkansas, and anytime you hear me speak, I talk about the importance of these sustainability programs. The good news is U.S. producers, by and large, are very responsible and very sustainable. We have a great story to tell, but we have to tell it, and we have to put programs around that story that make sure it has integrity and people can rely on it. So we see a lot of those initiatives happening. They are numerous. Some will probably take hold, some probably will not. I'm very excited about the U.S. Cotton Trust Protocol. I think that's one in particular that has a very bright future. And I think it's the most important thing that we can do to improve market access for U.S. cotton and to make sure that U.S. cotton remains the most desirable in the world, not just the best fiber, but also just the most complete package. And a lot of that in the future, a lot of the completing that package will be to, again, give our clients around the world and our customers around the world the cover they need when they buy U.S. cotton, to make sure that they know that it's something that's responsible and something that ultimately will enhance their reputation when they use U.S. cotton, as opposed to potentially hurt their reputation if U.S. cotton were to come under fire for some reason. So I'm excited about that. I think it's very important. Is it the beginning of I think you said, big payoff for these programs? It's hard to say that it's to what extent we'll be able to monetize these programs directly back to the producer. There's certainly hopes out there that will happen, and I believe there will be some premiums associated with some of these programs. To say if they're big or not, of course, that's all relatively speaking. But if you get two things, if you get any premium, but you also get better market access, and we do things that help us clear the U.S. balance sheet and make sure that U.S. cotton is competitive, then certainly you get a better price for your cotton in general as well. So I am excited about the future, and I think these sustainability programs are here to stay, and I think they're an opportunity for U.S. growers, and we just have to get behind them and do them smartly, but do them in ways that we can scale them and let them benefit our producers, because I believe they will.
Sure. Absolutely. One last question. What are you kind of telling your membership right now in terms of what to watch for or what to expect, possibly expect, and maybe where things are gonna end up come harvest?
Well, of course, over here in our footprint in Memphis Eastern Territory, I kind of alluded this earlier that there's a few pockets that the crop is, is average to even maybe slightly below average, but outside of, let's say, maybe the northern delta, where we see, instances where more of the acreage is maybe average. Outside of that, in our footprint of Memphis Eastern, the crop's in pretty good shape today. Today is it's late July today, so we've got several months to go before we get it in the barn, so to speak. But for the Memphis Eastern crop, we're envisioning anywhere between an 8.5 and 9 million bale production level. If you take the far west, we're probably somewhere between 750,000 to 900,000 bales. Put all that together, you're still sub 10. And then for Texas, we're just hearing more and more stories every day where there's, very little dry land that's going to make it, and even some of the irrigated is being heavily impacted. So, we hear numbers and calculate numbers that could be as low as 4 million bales for that region, maybe up to 5 million bales. So you start doing the math there, you have a hard time getting to the 15.5 million bales that we're receiving, the estimate we're receiving right now from USDA. Of course, USDA in their July report cut the production level from 16.5 to 15.5. We think that's a step in the right direction, but probably still have some more work to do.
Mhm.
And ultimately, the crop probably ends up in the, if we had some improvements in conditions between now and harvest, maybe around 15 million bales, but in all likelihood, it's headed towards a 14 handle. So, anywhere from say 500,000, maybe even to 1.5 million bales less than the current USDA estimate. That would be a small crop that yields a very tight stocks to use ratio. And it also means that if we do see a slowdown in demand, we won't feel it as much because we're already at that level, would have a lot less cotton available for sale than we normally sell. So
Mhm.
in effect, we've already sort of rationed demand, not necessarily because of price, but because we simply don't have it. And
Right.
so one of the things I've told people is, if you do see a slowdown in demand, that's always negative, but it's not as negative if you didn't grow it in the first place. And so we'll just need to continue to be mindful of both the what happens with demand, what actually is going to happen in the future. Again, a lot of people are betting on it being real negative, and maybe it turns out that way. But just again, have to remember the other side of the story is we've got a small U.S. crop coming, and have some other challenges around the world that we'll have to deal with, a lot of which we've been dealing with every year. We've seen the subcontinent continue to underperform in terms of yields, primarily due to seed technology. And again, I think the one that we also have to, that's sort of an unknown this year, is what will the scarcity and price of inputs mean for global yields as well.
Sure. Absolutely. Well, I think it's safe to say it's just going to be one of those years. We'll just have to sit back and see how it all works out.
Yeah.
But Hank, thanks so much for taking time to visit with me today. You're a busy guy. I know it's kind of a challenge to get our schedules to line up on this, but I'm certainly glad we could make it happen. So let's plan to get together and visit again soon.
Absolutely. And again, thanks for the invite, Jim. Always enjoy visiting with you, and good luck to everyone with the remainder of the growing season and with the harvest.
Sounds good.
And that's it for this episode of the Cotton Companion podcast. A special thanks to Hank Reichle for sharing his perspective on the market with us. Thanks too to First Fire Safety for sponsoring this episode. And as always, thanks to you, dear listeners, for joining us. If you like what you hear on the Cotton Companion, please be sure to spread the word, tell your friends about this podcast. Here's where and how they can find us.
You can find the Cotton Companion in 3 easy ways. First, go to cottongrower.com/companion, or simply click the podcast tab at the top of the homepage. Second, subscribe to our channel on iTunes or wherever you find your podcasts these days. And 3, Sign up for our weekly e-newsletter, the Cotton Grower e-News, that's delivered to your email inbox every Tuesday morning. You can do that by going to cottongrower.com/subscribe. Also, be sure to follow Cotton Grower on social media. We are at Cotton Grower Mag on Twitter, and on Facebook, you'll find us by searching for Cotton Grower Magazine.
The Cotton Companion podcast is produced twice monthly by Kim Henderson and Tyler Hatch, our talented colleagues at the world headquarters for Meister Media Worldwide in Willoughby, Ohio. My name's Jim Stedman, and Beck Barnes and I will be back with you in 2 weeks for the next episode of Cotton Companion. Until then, stay safe and cool.
Yeah, he works and he works and he works and he works all day. God made a farmer. Yeah, he works and he works and he works and he works and he works all day. God made a farmer. Yeah, God